Hello everybody, welcome back to another video for the day. Now we're going right back into r/Tales of Neckbeard, just cause, everybody likes that good old Toy Story time that you can smell through the computer. You know the deal. Beforehand, like, comment, subscribe, let's go. Our first story comes to us from username Flora the Foxchild. The Tale of High School Classbeard, part numero uno. Before I tell the tale of High School Classbeard, I want to get something out of the way. This is coming from a former special needs student, high-functioning autism spectrum for the curious, stuck in a special needs class filled to teeming with all sorts of shenanigans. And because this took place in middle and high school, I'll only focus on the high school bits, as those turned more interesting, shall we say, as the years progressed. Middle school interactions between me and the beard of the post were minimal due to only sharing one class from 6th to 8th grade, and we were more focused on schoolwork than each other during that time. We also had most classes in dinky trailers outside the high school property. I am not making this up, but changed trailers between 10th and 11th grade, hence the title. Okay, this whole thing about the trailers I can really vouch for, because I remember I know for a fact in elementary school at least, it was like 3rd grade was in these outdoor kind of portable trailers things. We called them portables. I don't know if that's the exact name that everybody else goes by, but portables was what I had grown up with. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's delve into the nitty-gritty. Me, Flora, then 16 to 19, 5-foot midget with a slightly chunky 140-pound build, somewhat attractive, but nothing to write home about. Brown hair that would turn red in bright sunlight, gray blue eyes, D-cups that filled me with shame, was wearing mostly dark clothes, autistic, highly empathetic, changing moods to fit the atmosphere. Note, I was a fledgling legbeard before I grew out of my mentality, which took a bit of outside jostling for that to happen. High school HSC beard, or HSC beard for short, is 5'3", at least 250 pounds, neck beard so thick it'll grow back 3 days after shaving, I'm not exaggerating, nerd, gamer, black greasy hair, and sunglasses indoors, claimed to have issues with halogen lights, and the things were prescription, but also flat of voice and expression. He almost didn't have emotions, claimed to be autistic himself, but doubtful, why will become apparent later. Roughly my age when things took a turn for the interesting. Note, deliberately changed his name for the sake of sparing him the embarrassment. Even I can't bring down something like that on someone like him, partly due to empathy and partly because he kept bringing it on himself. More on that later. Mr. Sparks, main character, brown hair with beard, glasses, middle-aged man. Note, taught more advanced things like the quadratic formula and Othello, some things most other special needs teachers wouldn't dare touch, which I find understandable. And lastly, a few other minor classmates who didn't get themselves terribly involved in this mess until later. Things went to a rocky start during my sophomore year. HSC Beard wasn't present in class during my freshman year, but transferred the year after. Believe it or not, even though I was under the delusion of dating him, Reed sitting next to him, sharing chips and holding hands, that was the extent to which we shared physical contact, I didn't exactly feel comfortable with him. Something about him was off-putting, and my inner autist was screaming to get away from him each time we talked. That, and we had little in common. Most I could say was I was a hardcore gamer, not into cheerleading or dresses for the most part, and he and I were both introverts. You know, the whole caveat of the fledgling legbeard gig, just not as disgusting. I was careful about that since school and all. That, and I'd been railed on to wash myself at every single opportunity. Note, I wash myself 5 to 6 times weekly now. That said though, I noticed several incidents with him, mostly where he'd shout at people and be made to eat with the teachers during lunch. Odd, given he knew what he was doing, but I dismissed these as minor since they were infrequent during my sophomore year. Now, at one point during lunch, he and I were at a booth eating our meals and chatting about anime, one of the few other things we had in common. Out of the blue, however, he changed topics and told me he wanted me to come to his place for his birthday. Blindsided, I blinked and tilted my head, and asked what all he had in mind. I did not know where he lived at the time, so I also had asked for directions. Also, did not have a car nor license back then. And he told me bluntly that he wanted it to be a bit special. I want you to dress up in a... What the heck? A onesie and to do things to me, he said that, and that had me paraphrasing, but that was his request in a nutshell. That raised red flags in my head, and I almost choked on my chocolate milk when I heard this. Bug-eyed, I asked why. He said, because it'd be hot. But before I could choke down my chocolate milk and I'm befuddlement, he added, and if we have a daughter, Flora, I'd have to wait until she was 18 before... What the? You know, I didn't actually read the whole thing, I just kind of skimmed over this whole story, so a lot of this is the first time for me as well. Now, mind you, he said this in a low enough voice only I could hear it, and with the being in a crowded lunchroom and all, but I swear, after he said those things, time froze for a few seconds as I stared at HSC Beard with what could only be called a disgusted look. He, however, did not register it and kept on yakking about his preferences. I turned out what he had said after that as the first few bits lingered in my head and started doing a freaking parade with the strewn confetti. No subtlety, no grace, it was like dropping a bombshell. My stomach turned as he kept harping until the lunch bell rang and he had to go back to class. I wanted to puke badly, but managed to hold my stomach. I've seen weirder, darker shot in my dreams, with what my being a connoisseur of the nightmarish. The next few days after, I avoided him deliberately. When he confronted me at lunch during that time, I told him I wasn't feeling well and needed to be alone. He bought the excuse and left me alone, surprisingly enough. So I weighed my options, shuddering at that whole spiel. If anyone asks, I'm unfortunately a child of 2 first cousins and found that shot freaking weird, and that in itself is saying something, and the red flags I got initially intensified. After quietly eating my lunch and turning it about in my head for the next few days, I realized how unkempt he looked. Somehow I ignored it until then, but he was always greasy looking. And how would we do things? Had I genuinely fallen in love with him then when he could easily crush me with his blob form? Seriously, that went through in my head before I punted that thought to the mental curb where it belonged, and I turned my attention to his personality. Brash, blunt, but otherwise dead. No vigor whatsoever. It was just there. A living doing as opposed to a living being. And would he theoretically provide for the household if we got together and had kids? I kinda went over a lot in those few days. An hour per day for lunch alone will do that to you, but I also had a lot to consider. We weren't the best match for each other. I'd come to realize our interests diverged beyond anime and gaming. I broadened my horizons a little and was more construction oriented and got into My Little Pony. He, well, more destructive as it were, but more on the destructive bit for another day. That and my empathy chimed in and registered the whole no sparks here issue, which my still churning gut agreed with. Come the end of the school year a few weeks later, and we were in gym class. I was playing with the other kids in a form-fitting black dress and a matching black silk vest. HSC Beard, due to his blobbiness, sat in the side room in the back where the teachers kept the basketballs not in use, as well as a desk and some badminton rackets, doing all the work he didn't do for that day. If memory serves, it was math assignments he was struggling with. So mere minutes before school was to be out for the day, I mustered the gumption to get to that room with my backpack on, looking him dead in the eyes. He looked at me and lowered his shades. God, that was one of the most vacant looks I'd ever seen. You know how some people will say autistic folks view people as objects to get what they want? Yeah, it was that sort of stare, except I felt like I was looking into the soulless husk of a homunculus gone wrong. I swallowed nervously and found my voice. HSC Beard, it's over. I said bluntly. Yeesh, that sounded better in my head. We're not dating anymore. And he glared at me, but I didn't sense any anger from him. My empathy registered nothing, really. I knew he could overpower me if he worked out a little more and actually tried, but I also knew I was more athletic. Even with a heavyset backpack that I'd stuffed to the brim with books and my midget putt size, I could still get away before he even tried. I'd once weaseled my way out of getting him head dunked into the trash can by simply squirming until I'd made the would-be dunker's grip loosen and then bolted to class. Another story for another day. Silence held for just a few seconds and we only stared off. He didn't ask why, so I didn't dare speak. Guess he knew what it was peeved me off and drove me off. I turned away and walked out, hearing him yelling after me. Tuning out what he had said, thought it was to the effect of, "You'll regret this." I snorted as the bell to signal the day's end rang. He wouldn't seriously muster the gumption to overtake me, at least not in a school. Fast forward a few months later, after I dumped him and advanced to my junior year. We were bitter enemies now, though I focused more on my schoolwork and drawings than him, though it better to be put it behind me at the time. Honestly, the best approach I'd taken, though I still had my shotbag moments to counter his, and got lectured for having shotbag moments. My teacher and para-pro were not ones to take a shot. That, and I found I was good at drawing ponies. Surprisingly enough, which appealed to me because I am a bit of a weeb for mythological beings, and unicorns and pegasi were up in my alley. For a few months, nothing particularly interesting happened, except that I got to go to art class and improve my craft under a teacher who used to teach French. Then came the day where Mr. Sparks, out of the blue, decides to play a game with the class. The nature of the game in question is as follows. 1. You choose a nickname for yourself so that Mr. Sparks can write it on the whiteboard. 2. Whiteboard is become scoreboard once all nicknames are decided. 3. Students crack out pieces of paper and a question is written on the board. Each right answer earns a point and a chance to shoot a rubber ball into a waste bin for an extra point. And 4. At the end of the match, all or nothing. Whoever shoots and lands gets double points, and the winner gets a cream-filled chocolate dunk donut, and runner-up gets a muffin. I don't remember the subject material all that well. I think it was advanced vocabulary for science or math, nor do I remember how many questions there were altogether. At the end of it though, HSC Beard and I were tied 24 points, with the both of us having studied extensively beforehand. The rivalry was fierce and he wanted to snack right away, and I was overtaken by lady hormones. HSC Beard got to shoot the basket first and missed. Shot went wide, hit the door, and then rolled onto the back of the room. He stormed to his desk in a huff. So my little self takes a shot once the ball is retrieved, and everyone's looking at me because at that point I was awaiting cue for a donut had formed, and mouths were salivating. I took a breath, made the shot, the ball jumped out of the basket and rolled on the rim before landing gracefully back within. I did not cheer, however, I was shooting terribly throughout the game because I had to learn to throw my arm upwards instead of down, so I trudged back to my seat, happy that I had won, but my empathy picked up on something off-putting, and I watched the rest of my classmates launch the ball into the bin with varying degrees of success. It was only as I heard the sound of ripping paper as Mr. Sparks handed me the donut on a paper plate that I realized what was up and turned to HSC Beard, who had ripped his answer sheet into quarters. I should have won, his body language screamed. Then he pounded his fists on his desk, which apparently shuddered. Odd, given his hemtacular fists. Mr. Sparks went over to him and asked what was up, and HSC Beard just stood up and marched out of the trailer to scream. About what I again turned out, I know tuning out sounds like a dong move, but if I hadn't, my empathy would have gone into overdrive and I had been overwhelmed, as I was more prone to sensory overload back then as I am now. I ate the donut in silence that day, but really only bragged to my parents about it. The rest of that school day was uninteresting, just spent the time getting assignments done and doodling in my textbook in between. For my art class, mind you, there was some banter between fellow classmates about the Beardo's behavior, but I didn't partake in much. I was too occupied with other things, and as my brain was to do. After that though, things between HSC Beard and Mr. Sparks would continue to escalate, but that's a tale for another day. TLDR, almost sorta kinda maybe dated a neckbeard as a fledgling legbeard, broke it off once common sense actually declared residency, became bitter enemies with said neckbeard, and managed to win a donut with a lucky shot. Donut was delish, by the way, cream stuff too. Favorite donut, best donut, Team Boston Cream. Okay, all I gotta say is that dude you were having to deal with in school, should not be allowed on the internet. I'm just gonna say that right there. He does not need to be on the internet for anything whatsoever. I'm honestly kind of on the fence to see if about following this story and covering the future ones that come out, because like she said multiple times throughout the story, there's going to be more of these. Do you think I should cover more, or should I just drop it right here? Our next story comes from us from username K the Smash Guy. Newcomer, Smashbeard enters the ring. Hey everyone, I got a story for you. Posting these stories, yeah, I got multiples for you, so expect more on a throwaway because I'm paranoid about wannabe Sherlocks. Happened before. Also, this story happened literally yesterday and I'm fuming. Well, it's been a year ago, so a little off topic. But first, the characters of the story. Me, K, 24-year-old male, 6 foot 1 inches tall, a little over 200 pounds, though I'm working on it, an IT student, a Super Smash Bros. Player since Super Smash Bros. 64, went semi-competitive in Brawl, and karaoke lover. Not relevant for this story though. L, 25-year-old female, about 5 foot 4 inches tall, my girlfriend of 8 years, and an absolute sweetheart, plays Smash since Melee, is really endowed in our Beard's object of affection. For the love of God, don't be Smash Beard. Male, reeking of sweat and cheese, a little bit taller than L, easily 200 plus pounds too, but looked like a lot more since he wasn't as tall as me and is a sore loser. With the characters introduced, on to the story. As some of you may know, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is releasing this Friday, so our student council actually organized a Smash Bros 4KO tournament in a free room with a beamer as Smash Bros. Is widely popular in our study field. Me and Elle play Smash since our childhoods, and when we meet each other, we became sparring partners and began coaching each other. I'm maining Ness and Lucas, and she plays a very mean Peach, so naturally we are very stoked about playing at my university. We arrived about an hour early and went to register ourselves for the tournament, putting each other down as coaches, which caused some confusion with the organizers since we wouldn't have coaches then if we played each other. Then we went into a room to take our seats and started to unpack our controllers. You have to bring your own so you can't blame a faulty controller. Around 15 minutes before the tournament began, I'm suddenly hit with this rotten smell. I look over my shoulder and see this unwashed kid just waddling towards us. He sits down next to Elle, and within seconds we are internally cringing. Hey beautiful, are you here to cheer someone on? This is gonna be good. Elle waves her controller and I tell him she's here to play. He scoffs at me and proclaims his certain victory. Don't even bother. With me here, the winner is already decided. I roll my eyes. I play a lot of local tournaments at local conventions and I have never seen this guy and I can't stand him already. In those 15 minutes till start, he constantly tries to make inappropriate small talk with Elle while she just looked uncomfortable, asking her stuff like her cup size, measurements, and if she still was virgin, etc. She just sat there not knowing what to say, and when she tugged on my sleeve, I switched seats with her. Hey, I wanted to talk to that lady. Too bad she doesn't want to talk to you then. What do you know, you cluck? You're probably only here to get in her pants anyway. I have no words, and then Elle piped up. Yeah, he doesn't need to follow me like a dog for me to frick him senseless. If I had drank something at the moment, I would have spewed it out. I could barely contain myself. Elle is awesome. I love that girl. The look on SB's face was priceless. Pure rage, resent, and anger towards me. Anyway, the tournament started, and one by one, pairs were called onto the makeshift stage, which were 4 chairs in front of 2 or the players and about 1.5 meters back another pair for the coaches to play. I know some of these people from studying, but some are completely new to me. I take it all in, trying to pinpoint players' preferences to use against them later, while SB is still making glances around me towards Elle. When my name was called, SB made an attempt to sit next to Elle, but was quickly shut down when she stood up as well. Where are you going, m'lady? I thought we could continue our conversation now that this cluck has to play. First, I'm not your lady. Second, I'm his coach and girlfriend, so excuse me while I'm doing my job as his coach. For those who don't know, coaches are other Smash players sitting near the contestants in tournaments advising players as the match is played, so naturally Elle is sitting behind me while I play and I'm sitting behind her while she's playing. I play Smashbeard in round 2. The dude took out a girl playing Samus in round 1 while he played Cloud. Smashbeard gets in my face when we sit down. I challenge you for the lady's hand. Do you accept or do you have no honor? I choke back a laugh. Are you always talking like that? Also, what do you expect when you win? That you can just take her home with you against her will? She's not just some price to be won, you know. After I beat you into the ground, she will know who the better man is. Yeah, sure, whatever. You have to tell yourself to feel good about yourself. SB proceeds to get absolutely destroyed, always jumps out of the shield onto the down aerial and wonders why he gets punished. His first stock is gone after about 40 seconds. His second was a little quicker when I grabbed him into down throw, into 3 quick forward aerials, into spike with PK's Thunder 2, basically pushing him off the edge and then flinging myself towards him. One of my flashier skills this year. Doesn't happen often, but when it does, it feels amazing. He calls cheats. Organizer rolls his eyes. I could have messed with their game. He tries to call cheating because Elle coached me and he had no coach, but gets told off and sent to the losers bracket to determine his final placing. Elle was also taken out of the tournament in round 2. She got bad luck playing the person who would ultimately win the tournament, but she actually plays Smashbeard in the losers bracket. So we meet again, m'lady. Do not worry, I will go easy on you. Don't, you should be grateful if she goes easy on you. SB gave me an angry stare and the match began. It took like 5 minutes, but Elle managed to fling him out while losing 1 stock herself. SB is pissed, shouts, and raises his hand at her. The audience inhales sharply. I see red and grab his shoulder, sending him backwards onto the floor. The organizers kick SB out of the building while I'm only shouting at him, asking what the frick is wrong with him. After that, the tournament is finished smoothly. I took 5th place while Elle took 34th. Let's never meet again, butthole. I hope you got your daily dose of cringe from this. If demand is there, I'll post some stories from local anime cons, as Elle and I are huge anime fans. Who knows how to behave themselves in public though? Yes, definitely do. I love these stories. Until then, have a nice day. You know, I have to say, I honestly really like this story, and legit, you guys have got to be a relationship relationship goals, like the whole handling everything really well, dealing with but playing Smash. It just seems like you guys have a whole bunch of fun together, just in general. I wish you guys the best and your best in the team-ups you have for the inevitable neckbeards that may happen in the future. Speaking of which, I think I'm definitely going to want to cover the other story you have on your profile. And with that, that is going to have to be it with the video. If you would like what you had seen, be sure to like the video, comment down below what you liked about the video, and consider subscribing and turning on notifications. I'll be sure to see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.